Hi, my name's Charlie Hoyt, and I'm going to give a talk on the Bioregistry, a metaregistry for biomedical entities. The ontology and semantic web communities use URIs to reference named entities like Austerpolone. You can see the red part on the left is the URI prefix that corresponds to the Kibi namespace, and the orange part on the right is the local identifier for Austerpolone. The problem with URIs is there's many potential ones for the same entity, and it's not obvious which one's best. One solution is to use compact identifiers, or CURIEs, which abstract the URI prefix away and replace it with a shorthand prefix, separated by a delimiter. Anyone who knows what Kibi is can easily understand this CURIE and expand the prefix to their own URI if needed. The problem with CURIEs is that there are lots of different registries that use different prefixes to refer to the same resources, and they have varying coverage over common databases, ontologies, and other semantic spaces. These issues prompted several big questions that ultimately led to the development of the Bioregistry. What are all of the prefixes and their synonyms? Who's keeping track of them? On the last slide, I showed identifiers.org, Bioportal, the Obo Foundry, Wikidata, and several others. And do they cover all of the prefixes? And the answer is no. I'll show on the next slide. Are they consistently used across all ontologies, databases, and other semantic spaces? The short answer is no. And finally, how do I standardize a prefix to a canonical one? For example, EC code and EC- code are lexicographical variants of the same resource. And it turns out that intends and EC code are both used as prefixes in varying places to refer to enzyme classes, like 1.1.1.6 for glycerol dehydrogenase. So the solution was to build an integrative registry that automatically imports contents from other registries. It assigns its own canonical prefix to each resource and tries to automatically map to all the other ones. And when it can't, it proposes a manual curation sheet. The diagram on this slide shows that the Bioregistry essentially completely covers most high-quality registries, like the Obo Foundry, Name to Thing, and the Miriam database in identifiers.org. You can see there's some resources that are only partially covered, and this is due to the lack of metadata, some references to dead resources, and non-applicability in the context of a registry itself. So ultimately, the Bioregistry has 1,190 unique prefixes as of earlier this week across 18 different registries. And it also has its own internal registry for adding some extra prefixes that don't show up anywhere, so that makes 19. In total, there's 298 prefix synonyms that are helping to do normalization and canonicalization of prefixes. And there's almost 3,600 mappings between Bioregistry prefixes and external registry prefixes. Ultimately, the Bioregistry is a dynamic resource that updates over time as external resources mint new prefixes and as users directly mint prefixes in the Bioregistry. And it's automatically updated nightly using GitHub Actions as a free continuous integration service. One of the problems we had with previous registries is that they're relying on small, closed groups to do manual maintenance. We don't think that's sustainable in the long term. So we did it differently in the Bioregistry. We put all of our code and data in open source with a permissive license on GitHub, where anyone can make suggestions, improvements, or reviews through issues or pull requests. And everything that can be must be automated. This means updates, preparing curation sheets, deploying to Amazon Web Service, hosting, and anything like that. And it all has to be done cheaply, so the longevity of this service isn't tied to a grant or specific funding. The Bioregistry is available in a few places. First, there's a website for users. Second, an open API for programmatic access, and then also a Python package for usage in programmatic settings. All of it can be installed via Docker, and like I said before, the data in the code are permissively licensed under CC0 and MIT license. So really quick, wrapping up, I want to thank everybody on the Ender team and the Laboratory Assistance Pharmacology, and I also want to thank all the people who have participated in discussions and made contributions so far. If you want to get involved, please join our community on the Obo Foundry Slack or get in touch directly on GitHub through the issue tracker. Thank you very much for listening.